Yes, hello everyone and welcome, welcome. You had a good lunch, everyone? I can barely hear you. Anybody? We had lunch, right? Yeah, oh, this is so much better. Now, let me ask you something right away. I have to make a statement first. I come to you in peace, okay? Is AI still a thing, everyone? I think so. I think so. So at this point, we're talking about it. Well, when I say to you that I'm talking to you, I can come to you from the place of peace. I've been having this nightmares about AI for the last 1.5 years because I was doing a lot of research on AI, talking to companies that try to implement AI, talking to users who hate AI, talking to users who like AI, talking to users who use AI, talking to users who used AI and abandoned AI forever, and all of that. And it's been so messy and so complicated and so confusing. And I want to share some of those insights with you today to kind of see where are we actually and what do we need to do next. And when we look at all of this world and button, that's a physical button. I like the button, but it doesn't work. Button, I mean, think about the buttons, right? If you design the okay, well, maybe I should. Here we go, right? So we will talk about buttons in the break later. Please come to me. Buttons are very important. Let's talk about AI, and let's talk about specifically about AI's ability. Now, everybody remembers that very first moment when you experienced ChatGPT for the first time? Month-ish, maybe it was December 22 or so. Now look at this, right? So magical. We invented a magical text box, right? Wow. And you could talk to that text box and you type and you send and you wait. 20 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, you wait. And then it comes back. Well, it came back a little bit too early. It comes back. And then you keep going through this conversation again. And you type and you send and you come back. If you think about an elevator, you go in an elevator and it has buttons in it, right? The correct answer would be yes. Beautiful. So you click on the button, and then you would need for like 15, 20 seconds for it to start moving. That would be a pretty bad experience. Or you go in the UI and you have a button. Oh, and this is going to be the story of my life now. You click on the button, and then nothing happens for 30 seconds. That would have been a horrible, horrible experience. But this was magical, right? This was really, really magical because it would understand, the text box would understand us. Now, if we move forward, there are a lot of things that have happened throughout these 3 years. We got quite far. This is a wonderful tool that's called My Mind, and you can actually tag things, you can cluster things, you can just bookmark things, and just make sense of it, right? So you can say, well, I'm going to add an image to my Mind, and then it actually understands what that image represents, the different things that are in it without us having to do it manually, right? And then you can, of course, search through it very effectively, right? Including things that you never really have clustered or categorized or tagged in any way, right? So these relationships between things that we could not actually manually type in because it would take too much time are remarkable. So AI is pretty good at that. At the same point, if you look at, let's say, tools like this here, this is very visual, of course, but you'll see where I'm getting with this. Incredible. You can actually say, okay, I want more images like that from that database. Right? So it understands the relationships, understands the patterns, understands what you mean without actually explicitly saying that. So when you click on, let's say, one image, it shows you more images of that kind. It's very difficult for us to articulate how they're connected, but you can see maybe that from the visual perspective, they seem to be quite connected in one way or the other, right? In some way. And of course, we went further because now we moved away from a text box towards something that's like a canvas experience, right? We have flow builders around, you can plug one input with another input and another input into one sort of space and just makes and creates this magical prompt for you and generate video as a result, right? And if you look at this, it's quite magical in many ways. It's really, really fast. And some companies take it to extremes, right? Can I have this visual, and then you can actually have a prompt being pre-written, pre-generated for you, auto-enhanced by AI for itself to feed into itself to generate a better result for you, right? That's on its own is actually pretty impressive. And some companies take it very seriously. This is one of the examples of agencies where you would have inputs and a bunch of connections defined once, right, at this web of things, and then you click on a button, right? You click on a button and you plug in an input and then it generates everything for you, for Instagram, for TikTok, for LinkedIn, for everything, without you doing anything. And of course, it goes far, far, far beyond that, right? This is a wonderful application called V7 Labs, and you just drop in files. You don't have to write anything. It just tries to identify what is it that they all have in common, these images. Maybe it's receipts or invoices. and says, okay, it seems like it's invoices. I'm going to break it down into all the individual units that would represent that. That's really different from what we experienced in ChatGPT back in 2022. Not to mention that, of course, we are roaming in the world of agents, and you can ask an agent, well, you will be asking an agent, hey, buy for me whenever it's available. I don't even want to think about this, right? And so you click on buy for me, and you don't have to actually go through the entire checkout. So why is it then, when you start talking to people, something else shows up entirely? This seems to be quite exciting to us, not to users. Because very often, when somebody says that something is AI generated, usually it's not a praise, but a testament how poor and untrustworthy it actually is. If you think about this, just think about the situation where you maybe see a poster somewhere in a restaurant, menu, and you can see the picture of people is strange. Sometimes AI has a smell around it. Are you good at recognizing what is AI generated in terms of images or not? Anyone? Yeah, sometimes you can tell. You cannot point a finger at this detail, but you can tell that's not real. It's not real. So how does it make you feel? When you see a menu in a restaurant or like whenever in a bank, right? And it's AI generated. Do you trust more? Do you trust less? Does it matter? Right? These are the kind of conversations that I'm having, and very often the opposite effect comes up. People do not trust and feel it's fake, feel it's cheap, feel it's fragile, feel it's fast, and not very trustworthy. And in fact, sometimes the mere presence of the term AI can trigger fear, doubts, concerns, and reduce conversion. This is what I'm talking about to you. I'm coming in peace. Right? Because all of the excitement that is in this room, and it's maybe in other rooms like this, it's not necessarily representing itself in the actual users who are actually relying on AI for different things, right? Because of course, if you're looking for 5 movies for the night, AI is doing an incredible job. But if you're looking for investment opportunities and you're betting money on something, then maybe not. So this is very demoralizing, maybe, in some way. So where am I going with this? Well, people are very confused, and we need people like you to clear it up for people. Why? Because of things like this. Some of you maybe have seen this before. This is a big campaign that's been running in New York, right? Why even think about humans? Humans are so 2021, right? Let's just talk about AI agents and AI employees, and the era of AI employees is here. And sometimes it goes to extremes, and you see this over and over. So I just coming from New York, and it's unbelievable. It really is. Like Artisans, which is the name of the company, won't complain about work-life balance. Well, they definitely will not, right? So there is that. Or, in general, here is a wonderful comparison, why you should stop hiring humans. Because they won't come in hungover, they never burn out, they never take holidays, they never take vacation, and they're cheaper. Now, this is why when people think about AI, they don't necessarily have a very positive representation of what it actually means for them. But this is one side of the story. The other side is the technical side. Because very often when we again look into this, we feel like we are going to dive in and explore the wonderful world of prompt engineering and tell people how to use and write prompts, better prompts, right? I always find it so confusing. I mean, AI is intelligent, right? It says so on paper. It's intelligent, right? So why should I learn the language that AI speaks? Shouldn't it learn my language instead? It's intelligent after all. And do we really expect everybody on the planet to sit down and take a cup of coffee and tea and water and read through the instructions of how to write a perfect prompt? And so people do that, and they bookmark it, and they use it, and then their article comes up saying AI prompt engineering is dead anyway. You don't need to do that, it doesn't matter. Why? Because it's actually much better to ask AI to write a prompt based on what you want it to do, right? And actually feed it into itself, so the results are typically much better than if a human writes it, right? Ask the language model to devise its own optimal prompt. In almost every single case, automatically generated prompt did way better than the best prompt found through trial and error by humans. Right? This is just so strange. People are very, very confused to the point that ChatGPT came along, said, don't worry about prompt engineering. We can do this for you. So they have a ChatGPT prompt optimizer, right? We can just write your bad prompt, typing. Help me remake my CV for any job on LinkedIn. And it thinks, well, it never really thinks, but it kind of comes up with all kind of ideas about how should I optimize it. So what would I feed into myself to get the better result for the user? And then it gives you this whole thing, and you take it and you use it, right? And then we said that's not good enough because we need to think not just about prompt engineering, but context engineering, right? About all the things that AI needs to keep in mind or not when they actually answer the question. So it's really confusing to a lot of people. And then, of course, you see the elephant in the room, where people usually would say in interviews that they feel more productive. So do you feel more productive with AI? I mean, this was a leading question at this point, right? Okay, well, a lot of people think that, but it doesn't really show up in data, right? A lot of time you will have the illusion that you get somewhere very quickly because you can get off the ground very fast. But getting to the end where you can ship something takes time. Sometimes even more time than if you actually tell AI what to do with that, right? And when we think about this, there is quite a bit of research around that area where at this point we're maybe around 90% reliability, right? And it's not enough to keep human out of the loop, right? And so when we put AI in consumer products, people expect it to behave like software, be predictable and accurate. And I want to emphasize that. I think a lot of times when we look around LinkedIn and all, we have this conversation saying, well, yeah, AI is not precise enough, not accurate enough, but humans are not either. People also make mistakes, but that's a very strange comparison to me because people don't compare AI software features with human attributes. That's just not how it works. People compare software features with software features, right? And if one is unreliable for work and the other is reliable for work, then we have a winner. People don't compare software with people. That's kind of a bit weird. And we also see this sort of thing of AI work slop appearing, right? Employees using AI tools to create low-effort, passable work that ends up creating more work for their coworkers. Anybody been there before? Yes, so we have a new term for that. It's AI work slop, work that masquerades, I like this word, masquerades as good work but lacks substance to be useful. Right? And there's this whole data and chart about that came in recently, right? Around receiving workshop negatively impacts our relationships and changes perceptions of our colleagues. So this is why there is one interesting thing that happens in testing all the time. People don't want to admit to their colleagues or to their managers that they used AI to generate a report or presentation or slides or even written an email. I mean, you don't have to raise your hands if you do that, that's okay, right? But very often people don't want the manager to know. Why? Can you guess why? Well, yes, because people have been burned at this point, like throughout these 3 years, where you just take something that looks very plausible, you send it, there is no way back, and then it shows up that this is weird and this is inaccurate, right? And then, of course, there are other things, like, for example, in search, we have these problems as well, right, where you see a lot of companies struggling with this sort of alligator chart. Well, you do see search impressions, but you don't get clicks anymore. And so the marketing, when we're looking into marketing, we don't have this sort of funnel that we used to have. The top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, the website, and so on. People just don't do that. They just don't go to website as much. Instead, it's all about exposure, being visible in ChatGPT and so on. And just, I know I'm spending too much time on this, but it's so strange how people are, because very often, some people who receive something that they see may be from AI, they would go in and say, let me check if it is AI. And so you have, of course, tons of detectors. At the same time, you have companies and tools like Stealth GPT that take AI-generated content and add mistakes and typos and remove M dashes so it feels more human, right? This is kind of where we are. It's just so strange. It's really, really confusing. And so when I'm going with this is very simple. Very often the reason for that is because we actually end up really putting so much focus, right, on just bringing AI into the world without thinking value proposition first. So when you think about business model canvas, this is kind of where we are. AI is typically not a value proposition. And I don't want to be a deal breaker, but I would say a lot of people, not all, but a lot of people just don't care about AI as we do. They care about things that work for them. So when I have interviews, these are the things that keep showing up in data, right? AI suddenly imagines things, silently assumes things, suddenly forgets things, suddenly changes its mind, says what I want to hear, often takes too long to reply, and if it does reply, it's too verbose when replying. It never tells me, yeah. It always tells me, what an incredible question you're asking today. I mean, you're so good at even thinking about this question. This is the best question you could even come up with, and here is the answer, right? And also, you might have noticed, the quality declines over time if you have a longer conversation, amplifies averages and mistakes, so really eliminating the extremes very quickly, or outliers, doesn't really listen to me, never questions my hunches, never asks for missing details, and then, here comes the difficult part, isn't really reliable for work. And I think over the last year, I've been hearing this more and more. And this is a real problem Because of course, if you cannot rely on something for work in enterprise worlds, then what's the value of it for you, right? So we'll speak about it separately, right? And of course, you can have other things like ask me to type all the time, quickly hit the limitation of my plan, response in a big wall of text, answers are hard to manage, but good enough to get started. So this is why I don't believe for a second that you will be replaced by AI or somebody who understands AI will replace you. Not a chance. Somebody has to do all of that to keep kind of clean up this mess that we actually end up creating with AI, right? It's just not working. It starts at the very beginning. People don't even spot AI, right? This is like one of the biggest problems that we encounter in testing. People don't understand what looks like AI and what doesn't, right? So there was a wonderful test by Norman Nielsen Group on Amazon, where they realized that users didn't expect or think to look for AI features in apps or sites. They didn't notice, comment, or use any of them. They couldn't easily find these features even when we directed them to look for them. 0 out of 20 people found an AI agent or AI assistant on Amazon. This is just remarkable, right? And where do we put it? Right in front and center so everybody can see it. Can you see AI here somewhere? It's right there, Rufus. Can you see it right next to the logo? We put it to make it so prominent, so everybody misses it entirely. 0 out of 20 people actually have found it. Now, of course, if you activate Rufus, and that's a nice name for AI, I guess, right? When you open Rufus, then of course you have Assistant, and it's actually very similar to Zalando as well, right? Where you kind of, it knows about the context of a page as you navigate from one page to another, but people have no idea where it is. So this is the testing, the example from a testing. So let's listen.
A lot of info. Oh my god, and then it provides you whether oh my god, that's crazy. Holy. Wow, this is like borderline dangerous. Oh my god. It just shows you exactly what you need without you even knowing. That's crazy. That's neat. It shows you compatible products. I like that. It's easy when you showed it to me. I've never heard of Rufus before, so I had like no idea what that was. Um, so off the get go, I probably would have just ignored it, just because like I even looking at it still, like I don't know what Rufus is unless after being told after using it I know what it is, but off the get go, I have no idea what that is. But I like
So it kind of keeps going, right? And it's so weird because it's right there, like right here, and we have sparkles thingy, sort of, right? And like everybody ignores it. Everybody ignores it. And of course, when you actually click on it, it opens up. Then, of course, on mobile, it looks like this here. And again, I sorry to refer to this all the time, but I actually like the fact that in Zalando we have this assistant really showing up prominently, right? Here, not a single person clicked on that button. I mean, clouds, whatever, right? So not a single one. And then, of course, you have autocomplete suggestions. And then somebody types in headphones, starts, right? Not a single person actually clicked on Ask Rufus suggestions because, I mean, sure, you could ask Rufus something, but I'm just looking for some headphones over here, right? So went completely unnoticed. AI prompt suggestions went completely unnoticed. None of our participants, 20 people, proactively clicked a prompt suggestion during the study, not even those who reported using Amazon daily. So things like this don't seem to be working because people are usually focusing right on the top of the screen, right, of the autocomplete suggestions. It works a bit better if you hide AI, right? Or you actually works a bit better when you actually make it where people are actually looking for it, right? And for example, in reviews or suggestions or something like that, on TripAdvisor, there has a dedicated section which says, ask our AI assistant, which works better. But hold on for a moment. But haven't we actually fixed it? I mean, sparkles, right? Didn't sparkles just fix it in some way? Just look at these beautiful sparkles. We're done, right? We just need to add sparkles and everybody understands what AI is, right? Well, not quite. Of course, we do have sparkles all over the place. And this is an example just from Miro. Have a toolbar and also has AI, of course, in it. And we have it kind of all over the place, right? And sometimes we would use AI in order to indicate a little bit that it's kind of AI generated. And this is what we call a sparkles fever, right? Sparkles evoke the feeling that it's clean, new, improved, and special. This is coming from the test conducted by Google. It successfully signaled AI in Google products, but it wasn't always clear what it actually means. Now, that's not very surprising. If you look at these three options, so what does sparkle mean there? I mean, what does this mean? Text with sparkles, I guess, or more sparkles and sparkles. Like, but what does it actually mean? Now, of course, we have a whole library of icons with sparkles because why not, right? But when you start talking to people, they're so confused because we're using sparkles all over the place. Like this is Plane Finder, has what's new with sparkles. Leaf has promotions with sparkles. Then we have star icon in reviews and ratings and stuff like that. Ultra is using discovery, right? And then I was really so surprised when I'm talking to a person, they say, well, isn't it Starbucks? What? Starbucks. Ah, that's right. Because Starbucks has offers which happen to be sparkles as well. And then we come in, right? Sparkles, right? And if we start looking into this, it's so weird because people usually associate something very specific with sparkles. You think about your daily life as you're going around your life. What do you think about when you think about sparkles, except AI? Washing detergents, right? Because it's clean, it's working, it's beautiful. And this is not very surprising because we see this all the time. But not a single person attributed the concept of AI to that icon in the test that Norman Nielsen Group has been conducted. And what do we do with that? Sparkles, right? All over the place, right? And so what do we do instead? Well, instead, you see that some companies are trying to do something a bit different. This is a bit of a problem for designers because it now screams like Adobe Illustrator. Right? That's a bit of an issue. But people tend to understand, okay, this is AI, and this is maybe not AI. And sometimes we need to be very, very clear in signaling what is AI and what isn't, right? Because if something is pre-generated or pre-written in a form, then we need to kind of somehow highlight that this is AI generated, right? Because some portions might be AI generated and some do not. So this is coming from IBM Carbon Design System, right? And so we have these different labels and badges representing different states of where AI could live, right here, right? And then as we keep going, of course, some parts might be AI written and sometimes not. And then if you have AI input, people also need to be able to edit it, right? So you need to think about how do you revert that to AI input and how do you actually allow people to edit it? And of course, they have a sort of a system for that too, right? And it actually really starts showing up more prominently because a lot of teams, like for example, ServiceNow, also go in a similar direction, just having AI badge whenever it's necessary. And so indicating that some sections are AI generated and some are not, or some content is AI generated and sometimes are not. It's not necessarily relying only on those icons. So could I have just 3 extra minutes? Okay, I'll take it as a yes, all right? So usually when we think about AI, we think about these 6 areas. And I mean, I have at this point like so much stuff on this, so we can definitely just meet outside and I can show some other things too. But usually we need to think about scaffolding, interaction design, that also goes for accessibility, input experience, output experience, refinement journeys. Refinement journeys are usually the most difficult ones. That's when people get the result, they're not happy with that result, they need to tweak it. This is becoming very quickly very, very difficult. And then, of course, in the world of agents, we usually have orchestration. So we need to establish safeguard, guardrails, and also approval processes, and so on. Let me show you just a few. When we think about scaffolding, we're thinking about where AI actually lives. And you might say, a text box. Text box is the worst place where AI can live. Why? Because it takes people a lot of time to articulate what they want and get it to the point where it's actually meaningful. Buttons are great, right? Buttons are fantastic, but there are many other places too. Typically, you can also find these canvas interfaces I showed. You can have voice, you can have search, which is kind of supporting both keyword and the text and AI. Integrations where the work happens, like in Jira, in Slack, or somewhere else. But typically, you can think about these 7 or maybe 8 different areas which represent what AI usually looks like. Could be a chatbot widget floating around like an intercom, right? It could also be inline overlay where you select a portion of the output and you act directly on that. It could be infinite canvas like these flow builders. It can also be a center stage experience like ChatGPT or Gemini, right? Left panel, right panel, this assistant, right? And then we also have a table, right? A grid where you actually can do something, which I showed also earlier. And I want to show you one example, just one example of how it's done really, really well, coming from Shopify, where they had like a bunch of AI features that have been launched, I think, a couple of months ago. And I was so impressed by that. So let me just play it quickly. And action.
Voice chat and screen share. Working with Sidekick feels as natural as having a trusted colleague on speed dial 24/7.
Hello, I am here to help you with any Shopify questions you have.
Sidekick, can you help me set up my domain?
I can certainly help with that. In the Shopify admin, do you see settings in the left-hand side?
Yes, I see it.
Great. In settings, can you see domains?
Yes.
You can connect your domain by selecting Connect Existing Domain.
Awesome. Thanks, Sidekick. That was easy.
Right? So the point of this is not that we need to have a voice agent that's speaking, but I want to emphasize one thing. Can you imagine how much more time it would take for somebody to actually write it all in the chat, then get a response, and then keep going? Instead, AI knows where you are anyway, contextual, so it can guide you where you actually need to go. It can also do things for you automatically, right? But because of compliance and because you don't know maybe necessarily what data you will have, right? You need to maybe guide people somewhere. Having this sort of audio assistant on the go, it actually can be very, very impactful for onboarding and other things as well.
Voice chat.
I think it's actually pretty nice. And then, of course, you see this happening on other levels too. Now, this is an example from a browser called Dia, but there is also like the same now in ChatGPT browser, and there's also the same in Perplexity browser, where the idea is if you need to do research across different views or pages or sections or whatever, right? It would be very strange to actually say, let me take a look and select this part and select that part, because some people do this really weird thing where they get the output from AI, they copy-paste parts of that output in a separate workspace, in a text editor, in, I don't know, in email or somewhere else. And then they have all these chunks generated from AI. They copy-paste it, right? And then they copy-paste all of the stuff that they copy-pasted back into AI and say, summarize that for me. Anybody does that? Why do we do this to people? This is so inefficient. Couldn't we just do it where the work happens? So the idea here is, I think, brilliant. The point is, if you have multiple tabs open, or multiple views open, or multiple conversations ongoing with AI, we could do this, right? We could say, can I scope this question that I want, or comparison or something, against all of the open views or tabs? Maybe I can also select the ones that I find relevant and remove the ones that I don't find relevant, right? Because otherwise, if I had to do research on finding the best spot for Airbnb, right? Well, you would need to copy-paste each individual link, give it to ChatGPT or somewhere, right? And say, summarize that for me. But it already is there, so why do that, right? And also, I think it's really important to create this level of abstraction. I mean, this is very visual. But we need so much of this in any kind of enterprise applications as well. Now, on the left, you have an abstraction layer that you can put on an image, right, to explain to AI what exactly you actually want to do, right? How does it work? Well, you put a circle, or you put a square, right, and you move it around. It's kind of this level of abstraction, right? And you move it because it's very easy for you to move, right, with the keyboard or with the mouse, right? And you can say, well, I want it a little bit more like this or like that. If you had to do the same by typing a text, that would have been an extremely painful and very long conversation you would have with AI. So this sort of level of abstractions could be represented in a couple of ways, like buttons. I want more of this, more risky, less risky. Slider, right? Radio buttons, checkboxes, things like that. Have we forgotten about all this wonderful magical world of filters and buttons? We can use that so much, right? And I mean, I could go on forever, but I really see the numbers going down for me. So could you jump to the wrap-up? Coming, almost there. To the end, there is, I think, slides somewhere all the way at the end, and then further. Yes, right here. Excellent. Excellent, thank you so much. Yes, sorry, right? So just one thing I want to mention here, and then I'm wrapping up here. I think that my clicker doesn't work now. Can you just escape? Yes, perfect. Right? You are the best. You are the best. I think that we are very much obsessed with that AI thing and what it brings to the table. But I think that it's really important to understand that if people don't trust or don't understand or can't find AI, then what's the point of it? Right? We usually tend to kind of forget that. So this is a summary of everything that I have mentioned. Please take a screenshot, photo or screenshot if you're watching this online, because it would be taking too much time to actually go through it. But this is pretty much everything that I said. And I want to leave you just with 3 resources. Keep your cameras on. 3 resources. One of them is fantastic by Emily Campbell. Shape of AI. She has a lot of design patterns for AI, interaction with text, chatbots, and everything in between. If you want to go more experimental, there's a wonderful resource by Luke Bennis on AI UX patterns, highly underrated. These are incredible resources. And then finally, design patterns for building trust, which is coming from project by eve.com. Fantastic resource, not just about AI, but also authentication, biometrics, and stuff like that. I just had to mention this, I guess. I just launched this video course, Design Patterns for AI. Running out of time. Cats. more cats, and I hope that some of the insights that I shared were helpful. I'm happy to share the slide deck with everyone and with the organizers, of course, as well. So feel free to dive in and explore. Beyond that, meow, and thank you so much for being here, everyone.
Thank you, Vitaly. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I love sparkles. I want more sparkles.
Well, that's okay. Sparkles are
everywhere.
fine, but for washing detergents, they're great.
So now it's time for a bit of questions. Let's start with a question actually about sparkle.
Yes.
That's the main topic for today. How would you emphasize the sparkle icon or the use of AI in the enterprise world?
Yeah, this is the same story. I mean, again, in
where it
many
has even deeper impact. So.
Yeah, so I would say it's the same story. I would never rely on sparkles alone. I mean, of course, if you're working in an enterprise environment, very often there is a very strong desire to make sure that people are actually using it. I've seen remarkable things, like really remarkable things, where somebody would buy tens of thousands of Microsoft Copilot licenses, and the retention of them is 5%. This is so expensive, and there is never money for research, right? But this is so expensive. 20,000 Microsoft licenses for 3 years and 5% retention rate. It's unbelievable. It's not because people don't, find AI. They just don't trust AI enough to be used in enterprise environment.
Yeah, thank you so much for the answer. Yeah, I see that we have a question in the audience.
About buttons? Is it Morten?
Yeah,
Who is Morten?
we already have.
Where have you found the most utility in AI?
Not in generative summaries, because there are usually 3 kind of projects that people are working on. Please raise your hand if you do. First is a chatbot, second is generative summary, and the third would be automation. Some sort of internal automation. Do I meet anybody? Yes, yeah. So I think that the most value comes when you have a lot of data and you would never be able to kind of make sense of it on your own. For example, right now working with the European Parliament, we have millions of documents, right? Millions of documents. Who can clean it up? Ever, right? Who can delete the right things? Ever, right? This is almost impossible. So if you have like tasks like this, where you have just an enormous amount of data, enormous amount of records and items, kind of trying to make sense of it, even although it's inaccurate, is still more helpful than just leaving it be as it is, right? So especially when you're dealing with complexity, I think it can be very helpful. But I think that at this point, we're not even close of removing people from the loop. And we're not even close of, you really are needed. I mean, at this point, I have no doubts that you will never be replaced. Well, never is a very strong statement. You will not be replaced, right, by AI. So that's my very strong conviction.
Thank you. That sounds very nice. Okay, do we have another question? Oh, yeah, I see here. Yeah, in the middle. Yeah, on this side. Yeah, thank you. Yes, the mic is coming on that side. Thank you.
Okay, I have a very important question about icons, about sparkles. Have you ever thought about different icon than sparkles or robots? Or is it like, can you change it or it's gone too far?
I mean, I wouldn't say it's gone too far, but I would say that actually just having literally a badge saying this is AI is so much better. Because I think we always try to be clever, right? So sometimes you see the sparkle, sometimes you see a creative variation of a sparkle, like we see on Rufus, right, on Amazon. Everyone's like, oh, what is this? This is just bubbles, something like bubbles, right? So I don't know, maybe over time we will get to the point where it will be just established just as hamburger icon is, but we're not there yet. And a lot of people, when they're facing AI, they're always coming to these preconceptions about what people are saying about AI as well. We shouldn't be forgetting that. And so I think a lot of people are just extremely confused. I wouldn't say frightened necessarily, but extremely confused about what they should do, what they should not do, how to navigate in this weird world, and things like that. So something like an AI badge is something that we would go for first.
Thank you so much. And the last question from our remote audience, I really like it as well. Which emerging AI interface pattern would you ditch altogether for banking apps? And why?
Altogether.
Yeah. What do you hate?
I don't hate patterns. They're nice as long as they have buttons with them in them. I would say. I would say that most of the time we are. I think that one thing that we often do, and we don't even think about it twice, we just add a text box that says, ask me anything. without presets, without any templates, without any components and stuff like that. And people really are struggling to understand what to ask then and how. Can they throw in Excel files into that magical text box? Can they throw in PDFs? Can they throw audio files or something like that? So people are really, really kind of worried about what to do with that thing. So I would say, if anything, it should be more contextual. And in fact, like one of the great examples is Consensus application. It's called consensus.app. And there is also another one that's called Elicit. They're fantastic because when you look at Consensus, it has a text box, and right next to it, it has a button. It has a button that says Filters button. You click on the filters, and instead of saying, I want papers that have this level of expertise and all, you just select with filters, like you always did, right?
Yeah,
It's
good
extremely
old filters.
efficient, right? And then you send it all in the world, right? So Ask Me Anything is
Okay, that we will remember.
not great. Yes.
Thank you so much, Vitaly.
My pleasure. If you have any questions,
Thank
everyone, I'll round.
you.